Welcome to Let's Relieve Regret, the uplifting podcast where we talk about how to relieve what you're worrying about.
It can feel so good to finally let go. Let go of past hurts, let go of old grudges, let go of self-doubt, self-shame.
The thing is, we aren't always given the tools to let go. We're told to get over it, or it's time to move on. But how do we do that?
We will share our stories, tools, and strategies of how we let go to help you let go.
Let's begin. Hello out there to those of you listening. My name is Victoria Muir-Bercia, and I would like to welcome you to the Let's Relieve Regret podcast. And I am joined by my co-host,
Shadoe Ball.
Welcome.
Welcome.
I haven't seen you in a while.
Oh my gosh, I know. It's I feel like at the beginning of the summer we're like, yeah, we're gonna keep doing this. We're gonna go strong, and then summer just is a whirlwind and takes us kind of out of it.
Yeah, life happened.
Yeah.
So we're back, everybody. Ta-da! And that's part of the lessons, I like to teach and do too, is life happens, and sometimes you need to take some moments to enjoy. And it's been a very enjoyable summer. And I would even say it's still summer. It officially is still summer till at the time we're recording this, everybody. It's September 20th. So we have 2 more days left of summer. And I'm loving it, Shadoe.
I know.
Shadoe, I think, is probably anxiously awaiting for fall.
Yeah. Well, I also the first week of September, there were a few cooler days, and I had broken out some of my, layers, not like coats or anything, but just like a thin extra layer. And I like having those layers. I find them very comforting. And so now that I'm back in shorts and a t-shirt, which is still great. I mean, it's better than being all bundled up. It's just, it's a sweaty time.
I love it. I love being sweaty.
That's great.
But as long as I can jump in the lake, which as
right.
you know, I do. I sit on the lake and jump on the lake. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a cause for applause?
Oh my gosh, yes. So yes, it was a very enjoyable summer. And also the lessons like you're talking about, where I'm trying to, release control of things and just kind of let things happen. And so earlier this summer, I had committed to my dad that I would get him a guest suite in my apartment building because I live really close to the Rogers Center, and he had tickets to the Pink concert. So I got all that organized, worked out, whatever. And then right before the concert, he let me know that I'd be going with him because the person he thought would come was not going to be coming. And at first I was like, oh, okay. I wouldn't necessarily consider Pink one of my favorite artists or anything. Not that she's bad, just it's not someone I've done a deep dive on. I remember I bought her first CD and really liked it. And then subsequently, I would say I know the songs that are on the radio. I haven't ever gotten another Pink album or anything like that. But Victoria, it was spectacular. It was everything. It's not just that she's a talented singer and has a lot of fun party songs and really good ballads. She's also clearly Olympic level gymnast at this point. She is just doing all these visual stunts. She also included things like little meditation breaks.
What?
I know, and if they were really needed, because so she does the big opening number's amazing, and it's good, and there's a really and the bass is so strong, so you're feeling it in your body. Everyone's singing along. It's just a really cool experience. And then she played a really emotional song, and it moved me to tears within the first 10 minutes of the show. And then she goes to do a change, a costume change, and this voiceover came on in the Rogers Center that was it just started this really steady pace, and then it was her voice saying, breathe, you're safe.
Oh my
breathe.
God.
And it was so needed, because I was at that point emotionally 15 out of 10. I was crying, I was sweating, I was just unbelievable. And then also me and my dad we're close, but we're not I feel there's still a bit of a wall there, so I try to be kind of sarcastic when I'm around him, and I try to enjoy things on a more like ironic level. And I couldn't. I had to fully enjoy this
You had to be
concert
like fully authentically yourself.
non-ironically. Yes, yes, and like release that control of like, oh, I'm just like this cool girl with a chip on my shoulder. Who cares about this? No, I was like a 12-year-old girl again. Like when she did sing the songs off that first album, like I'm singing along. Like, oh man, it was incredible. So my cause for applause is that I guess I've been converted into the Pink fandom. And yeah, so that was a really cool part of my summer, not just because concerts are fun, but like her like it was definitely a transformative experience. And yeah, so I
I
kind of
honestly
like
believe that concerts can be
yeah.
transformative experiences. Like
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody out there listening can think of like one concert they've been to that
Hmm.
like changed their life or their perspective on life, or even if it was
Hmm.
just in the 2 hours that you were there,
Yeah.
there's like this like palpable like energy at concerts,
Hmm.
and maybe you can remember something the performer did on the stage or something, and musicians really understand that, right? Like they understand life on
Hmm.
a different vibration because
Yeah.
music is vibrations, right? But
Yeah.
like the fact that she put in like a meditation is like the best thing I've ever heard.
It was so cool.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. And then there was also this really tender moment where she was talking about like when her dad died and like the song that she wrote for him. And, then
And
I'm
you're
like,
there
I'm
with your
with my dad.
dad.
So like, yeah. So I just felt really, really incredibly lucky to experience that. So my cause for applause is that concert, but also just like the days since the concert as well, just feeling like a little bit lighter, a little bit more optimistic, a little bit more like motivated too, because
How
like
cool.
the amount of fitness she must have to pull off that concert night after night, like, man, you know?
How cool
Yeah,
that like you can have an aha experience at a concert.
totally.
They're good investments.
Yeah.
Going to a concert is a good investment in your own
Mm-hmm.
life, like into your
Mm-hmm.
connection to yourself and your connection to the world and
Yeah.
others, right? You know that
Yeah.
feeling when you walk in and everyone's just excited and everyone's excited
Mm-hmm.
together? Like,
Yeah. Actually, right
it's
before
just,
I walked
yeah.
in, I had only like I didn't really have any, like I said, I'm not a huge fan, so I didn't have like merchandise or anything, but you know me, I have bright pink t-shirts. I have bright pink dress shirts. I have lots of
Of
bright pink.
course.
So I did that. I wore like a just a bright pink bra with like a black little like shirt thing and then like a pink overshirt. And as I was walking in, these two gentlemen who had like feather boas on and like
Nice.
they had like 10-piece suits and they were all different like shades of pink in these suits. They walk by me and they go, I love your shirt. And I go, I love yours. And like we gave each
Nice.
other like a little like elbow touch as we walked by each other. But like, you
Yeah,
know,
you're just connecting to
yeah,
other humans
yeah. And I hadn't
sharing the
even been to the
same
concert
interest.
yet. Like that was
Yeah.
just in the beginning, right? It was just this really cool, like, okay, this is gonna be a fun time. And like, yeah, and you could just see people too that are maybe from smaller communities who came to this concert who felt that they could be like more open like in that concert venue, like because it's pink, they felt safe, they felt
Yeah.
like they could really explore some stuff. And like so not only did I cry in the first 10 minutes, I couldn't stop crying after that, after
Wow.
after that happened. And I thought, okay, like, and every time I like, and I didn't bring tissues. I usually bring tissues with me to everything, but I never considered pink like as this like I and it's so funny too because like I've listened to her songs on the radio. I know the words. I know that she has sad songs in addition to her party songs. I should have considered, oh, I should probably bring tissues with me, but I didn't consider that.
That's not the
And
first thought I
so
have when I'm going to a concert to bring tissues. It's definitely not one of the first thoughts I have.
oh, like when I went to the
Yeah.
Hosier concert, absolutely. I
Oh,
brought two
really?
packs. I brought two because I
Oh,
know his
really?
music. His music really moves me to tears all the time. So I was like, well, seeing it live is going to move me to tears. But again, because this is an artist I haven't invested as much in, I didn't think about that. And when we got back to our apartment building, there was this group of women in the elevator lobby waiting with us, and you could tell they had been to the concert because they
Yeah.
were like talking and one of them was like, oh, it was so hot in there. I'm so glad we're back here where it's air conditioned and she's cooling off. And I'm like, so I look over and I said like, oh, but wasn't it worth it? And they go, were you there? I was like, yeah. And they're like, oh, it was so good. I was like, I know. And I was like, and I couldn't stop crying and I didn't bring tissues. And one of the women from this group was like, me too. And so then we had this like big laugh about like, I just, yeah, I didn't think I would cry that much in front of my dad, first of all, and definitely didn't think I would cry that much at a concert from an artist that I would definitely put in the party playlist, not the emotional playlist. But I guess she's just an all around very, like, this was the other thing. It's so cool to see someone doing what they were meant to do in this life.
Mm.
That was the other thing that was like, like how many people out there who do have the talent who don't end up becoming mega rock stars, and like here she is, she's
She's
doing the
doing
damn
it.
thing. So,
She's
yeah,
doing
so
it.
yeah, that's my cause for applause. And I'd love to hear yours. Sorry that mine's like so big and like transformative. I know we try to make it like tinier things on this podcast, but
No, I mean, they can be big and they can be little. This is about sharing, right? I also
yeah.
forgot to check in how you're feeling today.
Oh,
Sorry. How
that's
are you
okay.
feeling today?
I'm fine. Today's like a 7 out of 10. There's nothing great. There's nothing bad. Just kind of living. How about you?
Yeah, I feel the same. It's status quo today.
Yeah.
My cause for applause is, I guess this was 2 weeks ago now, maybe.
Mm.
We met up with, Shadoe and I met up with
Mm.
one of our guests.
Yes,
We
we
met up with
did.
Louise, who was on the episode, if you want to listen to her episode called You Can Change at Any Age. And we met up with Louise Carr, and we had never met her in person before. So we interviewed her on the podcast. She lives on the other side of the country. She lives in BC, and we live in Ontario. And she happened to be in Ontario, and she messaged us and asked us if we'd like to meet up, and it was so fun. So my cause for applause is kind of similar to yours in some ways. It's about that human connection, right? And how
Hmm.
easily we can make human connection and share these things. And we went for a walk on the beach, and Shadoe brought Gertie. And yeah, it was really great. It made me so, so happy that we can continue to make those connections. So, hi, Louise, if you're listening, we're so happy that we got to meet you in person and have a cup of tea and go
Hmm.
for a walk and catch up again and hear about what her life has been like since she was on the podcast. And she says she
Hmm.
still thinks about the aha moment she had on the podcast. And so that just really filled my heart. And it filled my heart to
Hmm.
see her and to meet her in person. And yeah, it was awesome. So that's
Yeah.
my cause for applause, but it could be our shared cause for applause
Yeah,
too.
I will just add on to it though, that I also, and this isn't like I don't, this is going to sound bad, so I'm just going to say it. I also liked that there was times that you weren't there.
Great.
And I don't mean it like negatively. I just mean like so I loved it when it was all three of us with Gertie, obviously. But there was a mini break in our hangout where
I had
Victoria
to go
went
do
to,
something, and we were like,
yes,
let's keep hanging out because originally
yeah,
we were just going to hang out for an hour, but I had to go home really quickly and do something. And then I met
yeah.
up with them after because they were still hanging out. Yeah.
Totally. So in that time that you were away, we had a really powerful conversation, and she gave me a compliment that nobody has ever given me before, and it was really impactful. And when
Do
you
you want to
came
share
back,
what it was?
well, I maybe when you
Okay.
came back, I did kind of scurry away. Partly because I did need to get back, but also like I was just so touched by what Louise had said that I had to get out of there.
You had to process?
Yeah. Yeah, that was part of why when you came back and I was very like, okay, you're back. Bye. It's
Wow.
because, yeah, she told me that, and I hope she's okay with me sharing it. She told me that being around me was very healing, that I have like a healing energy.
I
And
agree.
like, no one's ever said that to me before. Like, in such like a nice, like, I don't know, like I was able to like accept it and not just rebuff it and just like really think about that and think about like what does that mean for my next step in life and like all this. Like it was just a really, so again, a reminder that compliment the people around you, even if you think the compliment's obvious, because no
Yeah,
one's ever said that to me before. And like every person, like I mean, every person, I've only told Ben and now you. um, and both of you were like, well, I agree with that. And I was like,
totally
well, no
agree.
one's told me that. Not once have I heard that. So thank you, Louise, for sharing that with me. And thank you for like making sure you saw us while you were in Toronto. Like we all know that like traveling the country is exciting, but everyone wants a piece of you once you're at your new location, right? So really happy that she shared her time with us because it was a really great day.
Yeah, it was really awesome. And then
Hmm.
after you left, Louise jumped in the lake with me. So I talk about jumping in Lake Ontario all the time, and she brought her swimsuit and jumped in the lake. So we had a great morning catching up with her, and that was really great. And we made that initial connection just through this podcast. She
Hmm.
saw our request for guests, she filled out our application form, and she became a guest on the podcast. And now we can call her a friend. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's my cause for applause. So connecting to humanity, I
Hmm.
think, is both of our causes for applause. It's just connecting in surprising ways or ways that are unexpected ways.
Hmm.
It's kind of funny. Our conversations always flow somewhere. But
Yeah.
like for some reason, I've been having conversations lately about how important human connection is, and like the small connections matter just as much as the big ones. What you're saying,
Hmm.
compliment someone or smile to someone on the street. Not all connections need to be deep and forever and long lasting,
Yeah.
and all connection matters, right? It all really
Hmm.
matters. And like for example, the concert, you're probably never going to see those ladies again, but at the end, you had that
Totally.
connection in the elevator with them, right?
Hmm.
And that's magic. Lean into the
Hmm.
magic, everybody. That's where my
Absolutely.
head's at, leaning into the magic.
Hmm.
Are you
Oh
ready
yeah.
to share some regrets now that we're talking about being
Sure.
magic and joyful?
Absolutely. Yeah, I also like that's I guess what's something I like about the fall over the summer as well. Like the summer, it's beautiful and it's wonderful and it's all these things. But the fall has this like magic to it. Like it's jokingly referred to as spooky season, but like it's spooky because it's like sometimes things show up exactly when they're meant to. And I think that happens a lot in the fall.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
agree. There's like a energy thing that happens when the seasons change.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's real because there is actually an energy change with the circadian
Right.
rhythm of the earth and all these things, right? But I think animals tune into it. That's how they know when to migrate and when to do these things. But we need to remember that we're mammals. We're animals too,
Hmm.
and we tune into it too. And often we ignore it or we don't think it's real. And it's real.
Yeah.
Nature's real. Energy's real. It's all real, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, so the next time we record it will be fall. So we'll have to do a check-in and see how our moods have changed or our perspective on
Hmm.
the world have changed once it actually becomes fall when we record
Yeah.
next week.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All
Are we
right.
ready?
I think so. Do
All right,
you
I'm gonna
want to
go
go first?
first.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah, I
great.
have a shorter one today that I just kind of want to get out there. I'm still kind of processing it,
Mm,
maybe, or maybe it's kind of a more general one, I guess. And I'm kind of still processing it, so I'm just gonna say it out loud.
great.
That's what I'm doing today. I'm just saying it out loud. All right.
Excellent.
I have something that I would like to let go of in order to move forward. And that is that I regret a habit, and I think I'm already moving forward from it. But when I'm feeling low or tired or in times when there's a lot going on with my life, I have a habit of reverting to victimhood. Why me? Why did this happen? Poor me. I can't move forward from this thing. I don't know how to be resilient from this thing. Or my inner voice, my inner monologue goes to, I'm not a resilient person. I can't get this, right? When I do that, it actually prevents me from moving forward in really small things in my life. And I do say that it's okay to sit in your feelings. And we've talked about that a lot, finding out or having the self-awareness to figure out when those things are holding you back, because there's a difference between sitting in your feelings and moving through your feelings, feeling your feelings and then moving through them. And Sometimes I get stuck. Sometimes I get stuck in victimhood, or my body isn't what it should be, or my relationships aren't what they should be, or whatever it is. Sometimes I get stuck in victimhood, and remembering, I guess the consequence of that is that it prevents me from moving forward. And then once I finally do start moving forward, I end up saying this regret to myself: I wish that I'd moved forward sooner, or I wish that I'd done this thing sooner. And figuring out that programming in my brain around the victimhood, or around what holds me back, I guess, is kind of the process that I'm in right now. And where I'm at right now, actually, is I'm feeling really strong. I'm feeling really good. And I think that's why this regret has come forward for me, because maybe I am starting to reprogram it in my brain right now. But I'm feeling really strong. I'm feeling really good in my body. I'm finally feeling strong in my body after my surgery from 2 years ago. And I know I talk about it a lot, but that's one of the victim things for me, was this trauma of the surgery. And how do I move forward, right? What what I want to do is fall in love with the idea of moving forward, and not be stuck in the habit of looking back in order to keep me stuck from moving forward. And I think that's actually really common. I think it's human nature to do that. So I'm just saying it out loud, that I want to release or let go of when my brain falls into that place of victimhood again, and then I sit in it for just a little too long, right? Like, you sit in it, and it's okay to sit in it, but I think I sit in it for just a little too long. So I'm not really sure a closing statement makes sense for this one, saying that's who I was then, and this is who I am now. But maybe my closing statement today is I'm acknowledging this pattern in my life, and I'm committing to working on it. And I'm committing to working on it so that I can release easier, and I can feel light and free and feel more connected and have more joyful connections in my life when I can learn how to move through these things quicker. Not maybe quicker is not the word, but to move through these things. So that's kind of the process that I'm in right now. So that's my regret, or my letting go.
So let me ask,
Yeah.
do you want feedback or do you just want to say it out loud?
I just want to say it out loud.
Great.
I'm just saying it out loud.
Well, thank you for
And
sharing.
then you know what, once I process it a bit more, I think then maybe I'll bring it back and we will have a little talk out about it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Yeah.
What would you like to share, my friend?
All right. I don't have a preamble. I'm just gonna jump in.
Oh my gosh, we're so well practiced
I
today. We
know.
didn't, and by that I don't mean we didn't practice. I mean we've taken a long enough break that I think that we're just ready to record and tell stories.
Exactly. Yeah, this is one that I've been sitting on for a while. So, yeah.
All
All
right,
right.
go for it.
Okay. I have an experience I need to let go of in order to move forward. I regret the years I spent being proud of how much I could drink. Throughout my teens and 20s, being a heavy drinker became part of my identity. It helped me feel like I fit in. I also learned how to make really good cocktails and I became awesome at beer pong. So, like, these two things gave me like an identity to help move through awkward social situations. It felt really good to have drinking stories, like to share at parties or about the parties. It just felt so good to be included. And then I really truly believed that this would become my identity for my entire adult life. I would be that guy's girl, that party girl, someone with like a firm handshake that could hold her own or drink you under the table. And this identity helped me deal with social stress. For example, if someone didn't like me, I could comfort myself by saying, yeah, well, they don't know how to party. It also helped me take on other stress. Like I could take on more projects at work, knowing that at the end of the week, I could just get hammered and dance all night to let the stress melt away. Now, in my early 30s, I started drinking less simply because there wasn't as many opportunities to do so. Like house parties became baby showers, club no like going out at night was no longer the club. It was like a dinner that had to be done by 8 p.m. Um, However, the second I had a chance to really get loaded, whether it was like a big camping weekend or a wedding, I would be so thrilled. I was so excited to know that I could get the beast out. Um, then at 34, I was diagnosed with ADHD. And the medication I take for my ADHD symptoms cannot be mixed with alcohol. Like, not even a little bit. And so in the last 3 years, I've had a total of 2 drinks, like a shot at one thing, a half a beer at another thing, and then half a White Claw at the axe throwing thing I did last year. And so a total of 2 full drinks in 3 years. And each time I have felt so sick. And I know that that's the medication interaction. And then I start getting like, this is where the consequence starts coming in because I'm holding on to this identity. I'm holding on to not only the regret of drinking that much, but I'm also holding on to the regret of being proud of drinking that much. And the biggest consequence is now when I am in these at these special events where like other people are drinking heavily, I feel like I don't belong. And it feels like I feel a very strong craving, I guess, to fit in again. And that's kind of why I started drinking in the first place. Then I started thinking about all the times I got so drunk in the past that I don't even remember how I behaved. I definitely have a lot of drinking stories that I do remember, but a lot of them are a blur or completely non-existent. And then that causes me a lot of embarrassment. And so when that embarrassment like rises up inside of me at the event, I just want to leave. And at a lot of events where drinking is the focus, it's kind of awkward to leave without giving like a good reason. Um, Also, sometimes I can tell that some of my friends and loved ones maybe feel a little bit judged by my decision to not drink, and I don't want that either. And the biggest part of all of it, and I'm embarrassed to admit this, is that I desperately want to hit the dance floor with the same vigor I had when I could drink a lot. When I try to dance at social events now, it feels really forced. Like I can't get into that same letting go energy that I used to have on the dance floor. So I need to forgive myself for creating this shell that helped me navigate through a tough time. I get that that was the best tool I had at the time. And it was during a phase of my life where being social was as important as anything else. So it's okay that I kind of created this shell to help me navigate it through. And that's who I was then. And I have grown in so many ways. So I'm relieved that I'm no longer a heavy drinker or a drinker at all. And I'm relieved that I do have still like a nice collection of those party drinking stories and that I don't feel a desire to make more of those stories happen. But yeah, like it's really hard to give up the identity of someone who is a big partier because it's not just at the party, right? It's like even not at the party. Like it's like this really bombastic personality that I do feel really comfortable. I actually feel more comfortable with that bombastic personality, but I feel like you have to earn it through drinking. um, so that's where the regret is kind of like starting to, I don't even know how to really talk about it other than just definitely the dance floor thing. Like when I'm at an event and I want to hit the dance floor and I'm like, oh man, I could just take a double shot and I would just be able to like really move my body. Yeah. And like that's not part of my life anymore. And like that's fine. But sometimes it isn't as fine as I pretend it is. um, so that's it. Uh, yeah. Yeah. That's where I'm at with this one.
Well, I want to thank you for sharing that because it's hard to talk about drinking,
Mm-hmm.
honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want feedback or did you just want to be
Sure.
heard?
Yeah.
I want to say too that I can relate to this.
Mm.
And I think part of it is like a cultural thing, right? Like our
Yeah.
culture around drinking and the cool kids are drinking and the cool adults are drinking and
Mm.
the, yeah, especially like kind of our generation too, like that grew
And
up.
growing
Like
up,
it's interesting because I think a lot of the younger millennials or the younger generations now are actually really into mocktails.
totally.
A lot of people are choosing not to drink, and
Mm-hmm.
it really like does wreak havoc on your body.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been similarly, and again, Shadow and I don't talk about what we're going to say, everybody, but I've been
Mm-hmm.
making similar decisions recently as well. My husband stopped drinking about a year ago. I don't like it. I don't like the way it makes me
Mm-hmm.
feel.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like hangovers.
You know what? I
They're
almost put
terrible.
this in here. I actually did like hangovers. If I'm being really honest about this, if I'm being so
Interesting. Why?
absolutely honest, it's because you then have an excuse to rot all day.
Yes,
You know
it's
what
like
I
a
mean?
pride thing. It's like, I
It's
partied
I
so
partied
hard.
so hard,
Yeah.
and now Sunday I'm just gonna watch movies and not move and just, oh yeah, I'm too hungover to do anything.
Yeah.
And like if I'm being honest with myself, I do like those days. I love those Sundays that you just really don't do much and just kind of, be at home with either by yourself or with your partner or with your family or however you choose to live. Like, I loved a hangover day. Like, I didn't love how I felt, obviously, but I loved having this excuse that, like,
Yeah.
I have to be lazy today because I'm hungover. Where now, if I choose a lazy day, it feels like unearned. Again, it's
Like
not,
you beat yourself up if you do it. Like
yeah,
I'm being lazy today, like you guilt yourself.
yeah, yeah,
Versus you can give yourself permission to have those days. We all want to have those
totally.
days, and you don't need to be hungover to have those days.
Exactly. But I think that is an element of something I miss about hangovers is like
Wow,
yeah,
that's
physically
really
I felt
interesting.
gross, but like the emotional weight. And that's why like the regret isn't in the drinking, it's in the pride. It's in the pride I felt of like, oh, I'm a party girl. Like that's who I am. And like it was like so easy to kind of like wear that like a jacket. Like, oh yeah, that's who I am. That's,
Yeah. Can I make
yeah,
an observation?
sure.
And I could be totally wrong, so I'm just, but
Mm-hmm.
before you got your ADHD diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
there was some of your, a lot, not a lot, but quite a few of your regrets or stories that you've told on the podcast are about searching for an identity and needing to be that
Mm-hmm.
identity.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that connects to the ADHD or not, but it was about like, I'm the leader at work. I'm the person that people come to and stand by my desk and
Mm-hmm.
tell me all the gossip. I'm the party girl. I'm the fun person. I'm the
Mm-hmm.
jokester. I'm the comedian. Right? There's like a lot of needing to be one thing instead of acknowledging that
Mm-hmm.
you can be many things.
Right.
What do you think about that?
I think it's not necessarily about the one thing versus many things. It's more
Yeah.
about the idea that like I struggle with low self-esteem and self-concept,
Yeah.
right? I don't really have a concept of who I am outside of things that I can point to. So like because being a party girl has kind of like a rubric, like
Right.
that's something I could just perform, like getting a script, right? Like I could just perform that and that could just be who I am for now. Yeah, so like I think it's because I
Performative.
yeah, it's performative and I think that's where like the regret is about the pride, about how like
Hmm.
not only did I not recognize it as performance, like I really thought this was going to be an identity that carried me through the rest of my life. Like, and I don't know if
Yeah.
I got that from movies or whatever. Like when I really enjoy
I think from
programs with
everywhere.
like,
That's what I'm saying. There's a lot
yeah,
of, in society, there's a lot of kind of
hmm
acceptance about this. There's like acceptance and non-acceptance, but it's all happening at the same time. I don't know. Like
right.
there really is like this acceptance about it though.
Yeah, and it's shifting. I definitely see the shift.
I think it
And
is
yeah.
shifting too, and that's why I say like the older generations, it was much different, right? Like this is what all the cool kids are doing. You're cool if you just
hmm
and the dancing thing too, like I get that. Like you could be wild and then you tell like crazy
Totally.
stories the next day and
Yeah.
oh my gosh, this happened.
Yeah, yeah,
But I
yeah.
mean the blacking out and I've had blacking out experiences too,
Yeah.
like that is not good.
No, it's not good. It's not worth it.
That
Yeah.
it's good. And I can say
Yeah.
like alcoholism runs in my family, right? And
hmm
I definitely think I drank too much in university. I'll admit that. Like kind of what you're explaining too. I felt the exact
Hmm.
same pressures in university and wanted to be the
Yeah,
wild one and the life of the party and the life on the dance floor. And there were
totally.
nights where I'd wake up and be like, oh my gosh, I don't know, what happened. And I think I
Yeah.
was using drinking as a coping mechanism for the traumas that were happening in my life around that
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
Yeah, like these things need to be talked about.
Hmm.
Let me talk about the dance floor for a second.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Were you able to feel free and dance joyfully at the Pink concert?
No.
No. Okay.
No, I wasn't. And actually, I think this is what has been illuminating it for me as well. Because 2 weeks before the Pink concert, I was at an event where there was a dance floor and everyone was drinking and everyone was having a real good time. And I was there. And I mean, I have my sparkling water and I'm kind of like bopping back and forth. And I mean, like, I'm going to be honest, it's not like I'm super sober. I was definitely like, I had a couple of cannabis edibles, I had smoked a joint. So, I'm still like relaxed, but like, I'm on the dance floor and I'm just kind of like bopping back and forth. I'm not giving her like I used to with alcohol. And there's lots of people at this event that are, they're screaming, they're pumping, they're like, and I felt a little jealous. I felt a little jealous that they were having this experience where like I can't get into that frequency without alcohol.
Do you
Yeah.
think, like, is it a goal for you to be able to get into that without anything? Like, this,
Oh.
I don't like this term, but like liquid courage, right? Like, that's what people call
Mm-hmm.
alcohol, or maybe
Yeah.
even like edibles or pot too, right? It's this
Yeah.
idea that you need an outside substance to break free. And
Mm-hmm.
how can you actually break free without it?
I don't know because I feel like when because I've tried it because I know I like to dance, right? Like I like to dance at
Hmm.
parties. That's something about me, whether, and it feels like when I do try, like when I try to get into that frequency, it feels again almost performative. It feels a little bit like, oh, look at me, I'm having a good time without alcohol.
Does
Like,
it feel performative to you, or do you feel like people are judging you? Are you judging yourself?
no,
Does
it's
anybody
just
even
within me.
notice?
No, I don't think anyone's noticing. I don't think anyone cares. Everyone's too drunk. Like no one gives a shit. It's
So
all
you're judging
me. Like,
yourself.
and that's again where like it's around this idea that like it isn't just the alcohol damaging my body. It's like the actual enjoyable aspects of why people do it. Yes, I drank a lot in university, but I was already on that path before
Yeah.
university. Like
Yeah.
I started drinking and not a little bit at like 13, 14 years old. I started drinking a lot in my
Hmm.
teens.
And
And
this is
like,
what happens in, I mean, maybe I'm
yeah,
generalizing here, but in smaller towns, I think.
totally. Yep.
I grew up in
Yep.
a smaller city
Yep.
slash town as well, and there's nothing to do. What are we gonna do? Let's
Yep.
go drink in the park.
Well, and I mean also the attachment of literal performance there because a lot of the times when I was drinking, it was at cast parties. So like the
Interesting. Yeah, yeah,
seniors who,
yeah.
and this was
Okay.
back when OAC was still a thing. So like we had 19-year-olds
19-year-olds in high school because there
in
was
high
5 years
school.
of high school. There was
Yeah.
grade 13. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was free flowing alcohol and,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah. And then I have distinct memories. Do you remember, I don't know if you had this in your small town, but in my small town, we had this thing called dial a bottle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I
Remember dial a bottle?
totally forgot about
Totally.
dial a bottle.
And like we were all way
It was like
underage
one eight
and
hundred
like
bottle too, or
yeah,
something like that was the
like
phone number.
and I
Like it was
remember like we
like
would put like whoever had the best
whoever looked the
adult
oldest
look,
would answer the
whoever looked the
door.
oldest, whoever, yes,
Yeah, whoever
Victoria,
looked the oldest would answer the
absolutely.
door.
Yes.
It was
And
literally like after the liquor store closed. I
yeah,
mean, this exists now because you can
bro,
order like a
yeah,
bottle of
true.
wine on Uber now. But this is
Yeah.
like back in the 80s and early 90s, everybody, when like Uber didn't exist. It was like you would call it and you would order alcohol for delivery. And it was like
Hmm.
I'm speechless. Like,
When I
because
think
I
about it
guess
too,
it's
yeah,
normal now, but it was not then. And it was like you felt like you were so bad, you were so scared you were gonna get caught.
totally.
And what if they called the cops on us? And the oldest person, the oldest looking person, would answer the door, or like somebody
Hmm.
that actually was 19, and everybody else would be hiding in the back. Like,
Totally. Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah. Yeah.
forgot
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, and so I think about those times too, where like it wasn't just the alcohol itself, but there's like this connection, right? Like there's this human
Being
connection between
bad,
like
this
being bad
experience, we're
and
all doing it
being like, oh,
together.
your parents aren't going to be home this weekend. Well, let's all come over and we'll call dial a bottle and like,
Yeah.
and oh my gosh, like, and again, maybe that's just part of being a teenager. Hopefully, it's not still part of
I
being a
think it is part
teenager,
of
but like,
experimenting. Like I think like that's
yeah.
what we do when we're in those years, and I think it's totally normal to experiment and these things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's where we learn consequence, that's where we learn limits, that's where we learn the
Yeah.
edge, that's where we're testing the boundaries when we're that age. But I think the interesting thing is, and what you've pointed out is, when does it end?
Mm-hmm.
And you said self-concept.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain that term?
I'm still kind of newly familiar with it, but it's just kind of like how you see yourself and like how you are as an individual person and like who would you be if you don't have all these other externalities around you. So like
Yeah.
clearly I'm a different, not different, but like I'm slightly different around just my husband versus being around my husband and other family members.
So can
Like,
I ask you, where did you hear the term self-concept from?
you know what, I'm not sure.
This is the first time I'm hearing it too, and I'm
Okay.
feeling two ways about it right now.
Right. Okay. So tell me.
Yeah. One way is I'm feeling like, okay, interesting. It's another term, and that's right. It's almost like saying identity, but identity is very confusing and deep, and we don't understand that.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, it's another like piece of language to talk about ourselves and our self-esteem and where do we move in the world. The
Hmm.
other way I'm feeling about it though is like that's a lot of pressure. You know how we've talked a lot on
Mm.
this show, and I talk a lot about this in my meditation class that I run too, is you are worthy just because you exist.
Mm-hmm.
And if you dive too deep into this idea of self-concept, or like where do I fit in, or who am I don't have purpose if I don't know who I am, or whatever rabbit
Mm-hmm.
hole you're diving down, that can actually be a little dangerous, can't it? Like we need
Yeah.
to start to learn how to like love ourselves for who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And who I am in this moment is different than I am 5 minutes ago, and it's different than I'm going to be 5 minutes from now. Like we're constantly evolving, right? So that's really interesting. So
And
I feel two ways about it, is what
yeah.
I'm saying. Like it can
Yeah.
be a tool, but as long as we
Mm-hmm.
don't. And then what also is interesting is the idea of like self-concept or identity around behaviors or around actions.
Mm-hmm.
And like who I am isn't necessarily what I do all the time. Like who I am
Mm-hmm.
is how I don't know how to say this. Like it's not what you do, it's how you exist, which
Right.
is are two different things. And so when we think we have these labels, and I've said this before on the show too about regrets, is like self-identifying with something so much that I lose myself. Like I'm a rowing
Mm.
coxswain, right? Like,
Right.
and then I
Right.
I lose myself in that because I am so much more than that. And also
Yeah.
worthy of love and kindness and all these things just because I'm a human being that exists. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
is. Every
Mm-hmm.
human being that exists is worthy of these things. And yeah, we can get lost in these things, right? And these
Mm-hmm.
and like there's pressure and societal pressure, and it's a really interesting conversation because I think there's a lot of pressure and societal pressure around drinking, and I think as adults too. So we could have the conversation about teenagers, whatever, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually interested in having the conversation as about adults. There's a
Mm-hmm.
like, we ordered a whole bottle of wine and drank the whole bottle of wine at dinner, and there's almost
Yeah.
like a bragging about drinking a whole bottle of wine. Like
Mm-hmm.
this pressure still exists in adulthood as well. It's an
Yeah.
interesting thing. And so you are kind of describing, or correct me if I'm wrong, like feeling this pressure in adulthood too.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
not like I'm getting directly peer pressured. It's not like someone's like, "Here, drink
No, it's a
this." It's
different
just
kind
this
of
like,
pressure. Yeah, it's not
yeah.
the peer pressure from the friends. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
it's still in the zeitgeist, or in the,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I'm waving my hands around everybody. Like I know this is
Yeah.
a podcast, you're listening, but I'm making circles with my hands. Like it's in
Yeah.
the air, or it's woven into the fabric in a very different way as adults.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like I actually have a lot of friends that have realized they're using drinking a glass of wine as a coping mechanism as well, as
Right.
escapism as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe, Shadow,
Mm-hmm.
that you can and you will be able to let free on a dance floor eventually.
Hopefully. Yeah,
I
because
do.
I feel like without the alcohol, I have to keep it really like, okay, okay, maybe this is where I talk about self-concept, is that there are aspects of my personality that are more palatable if they come from somebody who's been drinking. So
Why do you think that?
I think it's because I really enjoy being loud and obnoxious.
So
And
own it.
yeah, but then, people are annoyed by that. So I've really
Why do you
learned
think
to
people are
like,
annoyed by that?
well, because it's annoying to be loud and obnoxious. Like
Why?
it
I'm just
just
challenging you
is.
right now, but it wasn't. I love that you're loud. I love like, and I'm
Yeah,
sure Ben's told you he loves that you're loud. Like,
yeah,
you can be the life of the party without alcohol
right. But I
and
also
still be the
feel
life of
like,
the party.
yeah, but then I feel like, but you see what I mean, where it's like the self concept is like the life of the party is somebody who does drink. So if I'm removing the drinking aspect, I shouldn't be taking up that space
Why
in
not?
the group
Why
because
not?
of group dynamics and
What do you mean group
social
dynamics?
group dynamic. Like in every group, there's like roles that you play. You know what I mean?
I think you gotta let that go.
You
I think you
can't
gotta
have
let that go.
two loud people
Why
in the
not?
same group
Why
because
not?
it's just it's how it works.
I
It's like,
think you're making up restrictions for yourself.
yeah,
I think you're
maybe.
making up barriers for yourself
Hmm.
so that you can't be yourself.
Right. Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
rules.
I guess. I don't know. There's written and unwritten rules everywhere, right? And like to
But when we
navigate those
assume
are
what the
like,
unwritten rules are, or we make the unwritten rules into written rules and make them concrete,
hmm,
then we allow those things to guide us without truly loving ourselves.
yeah,
You
but I
can
mean,
be whoever you want.
like I think back to like being literally back in high school and even without the drinking aspect of this, but like, you have like your group, like your friend group, and everyone kind of plays their role. And then a new person comes into that friend group, and whatever role they play, the person who was taking up that role gets kicked out of the group. Like
Okay, but that's
just
high school, right?
yeah.
Let's talk about adulthood again.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how adulthood should happen. That's not how
Mm-hmm.
groups in adulthood should happen. I mean, I've said this before on the podcast too, is I made a shift in my life and these are the kind of people that I want to be around and this is why you're in
Mm-hmm.
my life too. This is the kind of friend I want to be. I don't want to judge my friends for the decisions they're making. I just want to be there for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I want the same from other people. And if that means that I'm watching my friends evolve into something else and make changes, because everybody's constantly changing, and I
Mm-hmm.
can still love them for exactly who they are with whatever changes they're making. And they can still love me for exactly who I am for whatever changes I'm making. I mean, think about this podcast. I've changed so much since we
Mm-hmm.
started this podcast, and we still love each other and we're still
Mm-hmm.
friends.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of people I want to be around. So, this idea that everything needs to be structured and people play a certain role and that you can't change, that's not real adult relationships
Yeah.
and groups and community.
Yeah. It's not that you can't change it. It's just there's harmony, right? Like there's a harmony
But
to
who
groups.
defines what harmony is? If
I-
it's working, it's working. Who
Right.
defines that?
Yeah.
And why are you defining that, like, I can't have that person's already playing that role, so I can't also play that role? Right? Like, when we put things into boxes too much,
Mm-hmm.
we hold ourselves back. There
Mm-hmm.
can be two. I totally have been in groups where there's two loud people. Sometimes it's me and another person, or, I've totally, and they function and they work and we have fun together. I've totally been in groups or teams where everybody's a type A personality. It still
Mm-hmm.
works,
Mm-hmm.
still works. We figure out how to way to make it work. And
Right.
that's being in community and being around the right people that have that
Mm-hmm.
understanding too. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, maybe the question is,
Yeah,
am I judging myself too much? And in
maybe.
doing that, I'm assuming that other people are judging me, but really it's just me judging me.
Potentially. Yeah. I guess I'm gonna kind of go back to something you said around people are starting to drink less and like but it's still in like the fabric of
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
society. Here's a thing that I started to notice, and it really demonstrates what you're talking about, where it's like baked in to the fabric. So if you're going to an event, whether it's like a wedding or a celebration of life or any of these other kind of like milestone events, I think unless it states otherwise, you should expect alcohol to be there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where I went to a celebration of life also this summer, where it was communicated that it would be a dry event.
Hmm.
And I liked that that was communicated, and I also liked that it was a dry event. It was the middle of the day. Like maybe we should, and it got me thinking about like unwritten rules again,
Yeah.
and like it's like unless it specifically says it's a dry event, there's going to be alcohol there.
Yeah, there's an
So like,
assumption around it.
where
It's
did the
so socially accepted and it's
yeah,
legal. Okay. So,
of
of
course,
course,
yeah,
it's socially accepted, but I'm just
yeah.
saying, like, you got to do what's right for your body and your brain.
Mm,
And I'll admit, Shadow, like, again, I want to thank you so much for sharing the story because
mm,
I have a difficult time saying no too. Like, sometimes I'll be like, I'm gonna go and I'm only gonna have one glass of wine because I
mm-hmm,
have things to do tomorrow and I don't want to feel crappy tomorrow.
mm-hmm.
And then there's this like, oh, you're not drinking? Oh, but this wine is really good. Try this wine. Or
Yeah,
how, like,
yeah.
it's it's very apparent in adulthood too, just as much as
Mm-hmm.
teenagehood. But and yeah, it's
Oh,
why
I'm
do we need to say that it's a dry event, or why
yes.
can't we just let people not drink? But I will say
Yeah.
that I think there is changes happening. Like, so many restaurants have mocktail
Mm-hmm.
menus now.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't
Yeah.
exist 10 years ago. That
Not
didn't even
even, yeah,
exist 5 years ago.
totally. Yeah.
Like, you can get
Yeah.
cool non-alcoholic drinks now.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because I now seeing people complain that they're the same price as the alcoholic beverages. And it's like, yeah, because they're still bringing in like specialty ingredients, because
Yeah, there's
sometimes you
still
want
like
something
some
fancy.
fresh
Like,
squeezed juice in there that's
yeah,
like got a weird
totally.
ingredient or whatever.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I will say, if I didn't have this excuse, not excuse, I don't want to say excuse, but if I didn't have this kind of built-in
Requirement, if you didn't have this
requirement, yeah,
requirement.
I would still be drinking a lot. I know I would be, but because like even with all the warnings that I shouldn't drink on this medication I'm on, the shot I took was for someone's birthday. And it was also like they had bought this whiskey from like a local place.
Yeah,
So we
there's
were
like,
also
come on, just
supporting
try this one thing.
local.
It's really
And I was like,
special. Yeah.
I've been on this medication for a year now. I can take a shot. I can take a shot. Of
Yeah,
course
we
I can take
trick
a shot.
ourselves into thinking we're
And oh my
invincible.
gosh, no, I could not. Like
Was
I
it
was,
immediate or was it like a couple
oh,
hours
within 10
later or the
minutes,
next
within 10
within 10
minutes,
minutes?
it was unbelievable. It
And
was
did what it
like
was it like, did you feel like nauseous? Like you felt like sick or
I felt like I had been drinking for hours. Like it had
wow, like
just it
dizziness, nausea, gross.
dizziness, sweat, like
Wow.
nausea, wanted to sit down. When I sit down, I wanted to get up. When I got up, I wanted to sit down. Like it was, and that was off one
Wow.
shot. And then I was like, okay, so hard liquor, of course not. So then, like, I'm at an event maybe 6 months later, and so it was, and I remember it was like a beer, and it was like, again, I was like, okay, well, I know I can't have a shot, but I'm gonna just have some beer. And I think well, we must have been eating like nachos or tacos or something that really
Mm,
went well with beer. It was
with
like,
beer.
oh, like it was like, oh, let me just have like a little taste. And I had half the bottle of beer, and same. I was just like, oh my gosh, I cannot handle alcohol anymore. And then with the White Claw, it's because a drink ticket was included with my
Right.
ticket to
There we
something.
go.
And I was like, okay, I'll get a White Claw. That's mostly water, and I'll get it over ice. And then, again, like I'm part of it, but I'm not like being weird, right? And plus, like, yeah, I wanted to get the full value out of my ticket for this
Right.
event. And again, had half of it and needed to excuse myself to go to the washroom, like rinse off my face. I had been wearing makeup. I had to like wash all my makeup off. It
Wow.
was like, okay, so I cannot drink anymore. Like that's just how it's going to be. But like, if I didn't have this requirement of the medication I'm on makes drinking impossible, I would absolutely still be drinking. Like, so, that's I think where like the regret comes in again, not around the alcohol, it's around the pride I had and how much of my identity was tied to being someone who could drink heavily, who could run with the boys, who could,
Yeah.
be like, yeah, like I can see why I did it. I can see the pride, how the pride helped and how all this stuff, but yeah.
I think I kind of asked this, but I'm going to ask it again.
Mm,
In terms of like Does alcohol do something in the ADHD brain? Like we know ADHD processes dopamine differently. Is
Yeah,
it like a dopamine mimicker or is it
I think for me, because of the form of ADHD I have, for me, when I'm not medicated, and I've described this before, it's like being in a security office. And you know when you're in a like you see a security office and there's like 20 TVs on the wall. When I'm not medicated, my ADHD has all 20 of those televisions on. They're all on. They're all on at different volumes. I can't choose the TV to focus on. I can only
mm-hmm.
choose it's all really loud. And it all wants my attention and I can't just pick one. On the medication, it's still like that, but instead of 20 TVs, there's like five.
Did the drinking quiet it
And
down?
I think before I was on medication, yes, the drinking would also kind of like silence a lot of
Okay.
that. And it felt good, right? It felt good to not be so distracted because now you are hyper focused on this one thing, and that one thing is getting fucking loaded. What
Okay.
up? Party time. Excellent. You know.
Bill and Ted. Party time. Oh no, Wayne's World. Wasn't that Wayne's
Yeah,
World?
yeah,
Party
yeah, yeah.
time. Excellent. Wayne's
Yeah,
World. Wayne's
yeah,
World.
totally. And I think when I was drinking heavily, it really helped channel like all my thoughts into one thing. And that did help me again. And also, like I said, like it helps me feel more like I belonged, even though I didn't belong. I just felt like I did.
I mean, I can relate to that too.
Hmm.
Like just again the liquid courage feeling like I belonged, but not the relate to like making the 20 screens into like
Hmm.
one, but as a coping mechanism.
Totally. Yeah.
As a coping mechanism.
And yeah, like I said, like I like be loud, right? So that was the other thing. Like if I just showed up at a party and I was super loud and out there and outrageous, like that's one thing if you've been drinking, but it's a totally different thing if you haven't been, because then people are like, what is wrong with her?
Well, if you show up to the party and other people are drinking and you show up like that, they won't know the difference.
Hmm. True. But I also, yeah, I don't know.
Or what if people are like, wow, she's so authentically herself. I love it. Like she's
Mm,
not afraid to be loud and say what her opinion or crack a joke. And that's like refreshing and awesome.
yeah, I just feel like without alcohol, that's not something that is welcomed. And maybe that's wrong. Maybe that's not something.
I challenge you to challenge that belief because
Okay.
in the world that I live in, I think it's totally welcomed. I love seeing people be
Hmm.
authentically themselves, and I challenge you to
Yeah.
challenge that.
Yeah.
This is a bit, I mean, I think we could talk about this a lot, but
Yeah.
I feel like I have to process it a bit too, and maybe we can come back and have
Hmm.
another episode
Hmm.
about like drinking and alcohol in adulthood because yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking a lot now. Like I'm
Hmm.
thinking about like how we still use it as a way and I'm not saying that it's bad either. That's not what I'm
That's
saying, everybody.
yeah.
Like I mean,
Yeah.
I love like a good glass of wine or a good gin and tonic. Like I'm
Hmm.
not saying that it's bad, but maybe it's about just like being intentional about the consumption or giving yourself permission to
Hmm.
do it and not I mean, I guess it's the same with food too. It's like a relationship about being intentional about what we eat and when we're going to use it, when we're going to
Hmm.
use food and alcohol to celebrate, when we're not, how do we celebrate things in without them? I don't know.
Hmm.
I think there's a lot there and we've just kind of, you
Hmm.
know, chipped the iceberg or whatever the saying is. But
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know I
yeah.
always say the sayings wrong, everybody. I know
No,
I
that's
always say them wrong.
okay.
Well, I know,
Love
I was
it.
like, what's the saying? The thing like
Yeah,
this?
it's the tip of the
Um,
iceberg,
the
but it's
tip of
good.
the iceberg. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting. And I also do think there is like an under grumbling in society of change around
Hmm.
this.
Hmm.
Again, with the mocktails, with talking about it,
Yeah.
with these sorts of things. And no, I really appreciate you
Hmm.
being
Thank
vulnerable and
you.
bringing
Thank
that
you.
up because I think it's a big one.
Hmm. And to bring it full circle to my cause for applause, when
Yeah.
I was at the Pink concert, she didn't perform this song, but it was playing when I was in the lineup for merch. She has a song called "Sober,"
Oh,
and
interesting.
the chorus is like, "I'm safe up high, no one can touch me." but why do I feel like this party's over? How do I feel
Oh.
this good sober? Good questions. It
Yeah, no,
really,
it's good
and she
questions.
didn't perform it at this concert. It was just like I said, it was on the overhead when I was in the lineup for merchandise, and this was before she even performed. And oh, I should mention this. I can't believe because I talked so much about Pink, I didn't even get to mention that Sheryl Crow opened for her.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and Sheryl
What a
Crow's
concert.
fantastic. Like she is like, and again, not someone who I would say is in my music library.
Oh,
Like I
I
don't
love
like,
Sheryl Crow.
but
Yeah.
like I know her songs from
Voice
them
is
being on the
amazing.
radio. And then like every single song she performed, I was like, oh my gosh, I know all of these
You know
songs.
all her songs. You for sure do.
We for
Yeah.
sure just like, and like how interesting that like, at this point, like I would like what defines fandom? Because like
Yeah.
if I know all the words to your songs, I'm clearly a fan. But I would have
Yeah.
never said, if someone would have asked me like, oh, what music do you like? I would have never listed Sheryl Crow and Pink. Like those wouldn't have been people I would like list top of mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, really cool experience.
Amazing.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
was just gonna say, I don't know if I say I'm a fan of anything. I just like music. And that's the
Right.
difference between you and I.
Hmm. It's all tied to the self-concept thing though, right? Like
Right.
I'm a
Yeah.
cool girl. I don't like girl music. I don't like country music. I like hard rock. I like alternative music. I like music you've never heard of because I'm
Yeah.
cool.
So maybe
And
the
like
goal is
that's
about loving yourself first
mm-hmm. Yeah.
before thinking or figuring. I mean, this is probably the goal for most humans and most
Mm-hmm.
of those of us on this call and listening today is, the goal is about loving yourself first. And
Mm-hmm.
we've been doing it backwards. It's like
Yeah.
figuring out our identity and who's going to accept me. And we
Mm-hmm.
need to love ourselves first, and then it grows from there. And I
Yeah.
think there's a whole bunch of us out there, me included, that are doing all
Mm-hmm.
this work in adulthood.
Yeah. I think about also like, remember when you'd get riddles as a kid, like in class, and like they'd hand out like a sheet of riddles, or maybe I don't know if you guys did that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was always so embarrassed when I couldn't figure out the riddle. It always made me like
And
really
the riddles are
mad.
hard.
Riddles are hard, and now even as an adult, like if I see a riddle I haven't come across before, I'm like Googling the answer because I want like I hate not knowing what the answer to the riddle is.
Yeah.
And again, it's not because I actually want to be good at riddles, it's that I don't want to be caught, which again is so silly. It's
You don't
such a
be caught
silly,
not knowing because that's like a
yeah,
form of failure
yeah, like I don't want to be at like a
or
dinner
being not good
party
enough.
and someone brings up this riddle and then
Yeah.
everyone else is trying to figure it out and I'm like, "Ooh, yeah, I already know the answer." And it's not because I've thought about it or I could actually get to the answer normally, it's because I've memorized it. I've memorized all the answers to all the riddles so that I don't get caught looking dumb.
Interesting.
And like so silly. So silly. But
Again, that's
that's
about like outside acceptance versus
mhm.
internal acceptance.
Yeah, that's why I'm bringing it up is like it's so similar to this. Yeah. So thank you for letting me talk about it. I know again it could just be really easy to be like, I regret drinking and then it's just over, but like it's not. It's not about the actual alcohol consumption at all. It's
Yeah,
about
it's about
what it
learning
meant to
about
me.
yourself. Yeah,
Yeah.
learning about yourself and why that action and all of those deeper things. I think we peeled back some layers there, and I
Mm-hmm.
think I'd like to revisit this sometime.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if there's anyone out there listening that maybe has a regret attached to it or wants to talk about it and be a guest, I'd love to revisit this. And if there's a guest on that wants to come and talk about it, I would love that too.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe this is a good time to announce Anonymous.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah.
Let's.
We are the past few episodes we've of episodes, the past few seasons, we've been bringing guests on and it's been
Mhm.
amazing.
Really,
But
really
we
good.
want to offer to you a different way to be a guest. If you would like to tell a story of regret, but do it anonymously, we are going to open up applications for that where you can write us a letter and we will read your letter on an episode, and then Shadoe and I will provide feedback. You don't even need to be here. You can be anonymous, but you can share your story. And if you would like to share your story for many reasons, maybe you want to be anonymous, you want to share your story because you know other people hearing your story will help heal them. Maybe it will heal you. Maybe you're really interested in what Shadoe and I have to say about it and what our
Maybe.
feedback could be. Or maybe you just want to get it out there. It's going to be called Let's Relieve Regret Anonymous, and it's going to be another form that you can be a part of the show if you want to be. So we will be providing details on that in the show notes. And that's another way that we can start to share these stories because, again, it's just been incredible the amount of people that want to be guests on the show and the amount of stories that people want to share. And we're going to continue doing that. We're going to continue having guests, but we also want to provide a way for people to share their stories if they're not comfortable being a guest, if they don't want their name attached to the story or whatever it is. So that's going to be another form of sharing on the podcast and getting these stories out there so that we can all talk about them and all learn and all heal and all practice letting go and relieving regret. So that is coming, everybody, and we're very excited about it.
Absolutely. Great. I'm so excited for that. And I'm also excited to close out this episode. So would you lead us in our breathing exercise?
I'm gonna lead us in 3 breaths, everybody. They're different because we like to change up what the 3 breaths are. So come on to the front edge of your seat, everybody. Put your feet flat on the floor if it is safe for you to do so. If you're driving, please don't put your feet flat on the floor. And if you want, you can put your hand on your heart and you can close your eyes again if it is safe for you to do so. And the reason we do these 3 breaths is just so that we can connect into ourselves and be kind to ourselves. So taking a big breath in and a long exhale out, saying to yourself, I'm choosing to believe that I am worthy just because I am. And on this next breath, big breath in, and a long exhale out. I'm committing to be kind to myself in the way that I talk to myself each and every day. And on this last breath, taking a big breath in, and a very long exhale out. I'm committing to finding small moments of joy and connection in the everyday ordinary in my life so that I can heal and be connected. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We appreciate you so much, and we will see ya, hear ya, be with ya in the next one.
Yay.
We look forward to it.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
This episode of Let's Relieve Regret was produced by Shadoe Ball and Victoria Muir-Bercia.
Editing by me, Victoria Muir-Bercia.
We are an independent podcast supported by you, our listeners.
If you think this podcast sends a valuable message, you had an aha moment, or learned something new about yourself, help us realize our goal of reaching as many listeners as possible.
We encourage you to take action and support us right now by choosing one of the following options.
You can easily support us by
Following us on Instagram at relieve.regret.
tell 2 friends,
Leave a 5-star review on whatever app you're listening to us on.
leave a tip at coffee.com/Let's Relieve Regret podcast. That's ko-fi.com/Let's Relieve Regret podcast.
Join our conversations in the Facebook group, Let's Relieve Regret Podcast.
Find all this information, all the links, and more in the podcast notes. Okay, bye.
Bye.